Welcome, everyone. I am delighted to welcome Rick Clody today to Recruiter on Call with Jobs. So I was chatting with Rick before we started in pre-live, and I was asking him what's the heritage of his name. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, hey Lynn, great to be here. Yeah, my last name is pronounced Clody. Nobody ever spells it or says it that way when they first see it, but it's of Swiss heritage. I've heard. I've heard people say it might be Dutch, but so my joke is, if you want to get in a war, I'm going to remain neutral. Not going to get in the fight, but I will hold your money or your gold bullion, whatever. But yeah, Clody is of Swiss origin, Lynn.
All right, that's very cool. So my family is Polish and French Canadian. So the Polish comes from my um, uh, mother's side, and the
Okay.
French Canadian comes from my father's side.
Wow.
So
Well, I
so
grew up
that's
in New
why.
Orleans, and a lot of
Oh,
French
did
Canadians
you?
down in New Orleans. Yeah, Nouvelle Orleans.
Ah, et vous parlez français?
Je parle France un peu,
Un
un
peu.
peu.
Okay.
Just a little,
Well,
just a little.
um, I started learning French when I was in sixth grade, and then I continued it on through college and through graduate school. I've been to France six times,
Beautiful
so
language.
that's why I learned French over Spanish. I could kick myself now, but I
Right.
wish I would have learned Spanish because it would be very useful. But what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
So let's get into this today.
Sure.
Um, as you know, I do this every month, typically on the third Thursday of the month at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to start with introducing myself, and then I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. So I'm Lynne Williams. I am based out of the suburbs of Philadelphia in Paoli, Pennsylvania, specifically. It's on the main line. And the main line happens to be like a train running down the main line from Philadelphia out to the suburbs. So, and there's lots more stories about that. And this weekend we have the Devon Horse Show coming up, which is very famous thing on the main line. So I will be going to that and getting my, proverbial junk food, right? It's always good to have. So what I do is I write resumes, LinkedIn profiles, and focus on keywords. That is how the girl eats. And then I also run a 501c3 nonprofit called Great Careers Network, which is greatcareers.org. And we run, currently like 18 to 25 events a month. Most are on Zoom. We have networking meetings just for job seekers that are free. We have executive, mid to senior level executive networking meetings that are free. And then we also have speaker meetings, and we run a bunch of those mornings, lunch times, afternoons, evenings, weekends, so that hopefully somebody can catch something in the schedule that works for them. And as a nonprofit, we charge about a cup of coffee a month. So it's a very good deal, just a little skin in the game because you know what? We have to pay insurance, right? As a nonprofit. So that's me. That's what I do. So why don't you tell us where you're from and how long you've been a recruiter?
Sure. My name is Rick Clody, and I'm the founding president of Clody Group, based in Nashville, Tennessee. As we said earlier, I'm originally from New Orleans, but for over 20 years, a couple of decades, I've been helping companies find leaders who not only fit the role, but also fit the culture and the future direction of the organization. So we help companies find mid to senior level executives. Again, been in Nashville for about 30 years. 20 of those have been in full-time executive search. So we do retained executive search. And really what we've done is built a career on helping, solve difficult leadership hiring challenges. And that's kind of what I do.
All right. So is there any particular industry that you specialize in, or it's more about the role and the challenges that a company's trying to fill?
Yeah, it's more the latter, Lynn. So Really, when people ask me what my niche is or specialty, I always answer the same way. It's leadership. So we don't just fill roles, we help companies build stronger futures through strategic leadership hiring. And basically, um, we fill mid to senior level roles across all industries and all functional titles. I like to say that we fill those mid to senior level roles that are difficult to fill. We also do compensation analysis work. So we help hiring companies benchmark if they're hiring for a new position they've never filled before. We'll help them determine what the appropriate pay is, or candidates that are looking like, yeah, I know you have an audience of people in transition. What if they get an offer and they don't know if it's a good offer? We can help with that as well. So we help owners and HR leaders fill those difficult mid to senior level roles. And really what we're good at is finding leaders. We find them, source them, vet them, and deliver them.
So, I heard that you helped a friend of mine raise his salary with your expertise. So that's
Yes.
great to hear. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, yep.
Yeah,
So,
he
uh,
had received an offer and was expecting a couple more, and we got in conversation about it. And I asked him a simple question. I said, "Hey, is it a good offer?" And he said, "I'm not sure." And I go, "Send it over. I'll let you know." And sure enough, the mix was a little off, and the total amount was a little below where he needed to be based on his background, skills, and experience, Lynn. So he went back with the data, and sure enough, they upped his pay significantly.
that's awesome. That's great to hear. So, John Werner was the first one chiming in on the chat that I can see, and he's chiming in from Chicago suburbs. So happy you're here again, John. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the world of job search right now. What are the trends happening in the hiring landscape? What's going on out there?
Yeah, it's the wild, wild west. Companies that are winning today, Lynn, are hiring leaders that can navigate uncertainty, kind of communicate clearly, and build strong cultures. So I think everybody knows a lot of companies are being more selective. Obviously, hiring cycles are a little bit longer than normal, is what we're seeing out there. Uh, what I would tell you is employers with candidates who can adapt quickly and lead through change, those are the ones that are winning. And really, if you're the right person for that job and that culture, and you get referred in or found out by the right person, that hiring cycle can be shortened significantly. Obviously, the trend that we're all seeing is AI. Everybody, AI is the
Yeah.
buzzword. So AI skills are in demand. That's one of the trends. Soft skills. I would tell you that because of the advent of AI, people who have the good people skills, relationship skills, who can de-escalate, uh, who have technical ability, but coupled with emotional intelligence. Uh, People
Mm.
who've navigated problems and changes and done it successfully and can live to tell the story. Have the war stories and the scars to prove it. Those are the ones that are in demand.
Well, we're going to dive a little deeper into soft skills in a little bit. Let's
Okay.
start talking about resumes after I say hi to Raphael and Haribal from New Jersey. Thanks for joining in. Um, so, what advice do you have for job seekers for crafting an effective resume that stands out? And since you're dealing with, mid to senior level people, you know, how long should their resume be?
Yeah, that's the eternal question. It used to be try to keep it to 1 or 2 pages. I say no. If it's easy to read and easy to follow, if you've been if you've got a 20, 25-year career or more, don't try to cram it into 1 or 2 pages because then it's hard to read, right? So keep in mind, Lynn, I always advise people, what's the goal of the resume? It's to get an interview, right? So answer
Yes.
one question quickly. Why should this company interview you? I need to be able to ID or identify value very, very quickly, right up front. So here's what you want to do: think impact, show progress and growth, and make it easy for me to present you, in the next phase. So always, keep it concise, keep it clean, obviously common sense. Show measurable accomplishments, metrics, revenue growth,
Amen.
cost savings, operational improvements, team leadership impact. Don't use overly complicated formatting. Um, executive resumes should tell us a strategic story, right? So if nobody wants to read a resume, including me, I read thousands of them, a week, but I like a story. So if your resume chronologically tells me a story about who you are, and not only who you are and what you did, but how you did it, now you're hooking me in. I'm reading, I'm hooked on the story, because remember, Lynn, nobody cares what you did. What they care about are the results you delivered. So if your resume is chock full of results and you start each bullet point with the result followed by how you did it, you got me, because now at the beginning of every bullet, result, result, result. Pretty soon, guess what I'm thinking? Wow, this Lynn person is very results oriented. I wonder if
Yep.
she could deliver those kind of results for us. Voila.
Yeah.
Now they want to meet with you and have an interview.
Yes, absolutely. Dollars, numbers, percents. How did you help a company make or
Enumerate.
save
Yes.
money or time? What
What's
was
your
your
value?
impact? Yeah. So I have a little section at the top of my resume that I use not for young folks, but for more seasoned people, and it's called career highlights. So what are those special skills that you want people to know, your areas of expertise, and what were the metrics and those results of how you did things? What are you proud of over your entire career? And then,
Yes.
of course, you have all the bullet points under each of your jobs. But I like to pull that up at the top half
I love that.
of the first page so that it's like easy to
Consume.
see,
Yeah.
the pow pow, bring it
Yeah.
on, and that this is what I do.
What I like about what you just said is, instead of a big word clump or a run on sentence about all the many things you've done, you give it to me in little bite sized morsels, kind of like a tapas menu versus, a
Yeah.
smorgasbord where it's soon
Yes.
as I look at it, I'm already full from looking at the resume. I don't want to read it. You got to make it easy to consume, make it easy on the recruiter to say, wow, look at all these highlights.
So, I do resumes a lot that I do 2 pages, but if I have a lot of senior people, I will go 3 pages, and then, there's one section which will be a prior work experience, and those will be one-liners, but it'll still be reconstructed and well written with the metrics going on LinkedIn. So somebody can always go and reference things from the past. Because sometimes candidates might have worked for some pretty prestigious companies, in their early years. And they don't want to miss having those names that, they were hired by a prestigious company, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So,
Love that.
um, So hello to Lorena from Northeast Pennsylvania. She's in the Poconos. So John is asking, from what you're seeing right now, what tends to separate candidates who get interviews from equally qualified candidates who don't?
I'll give you a little. I may be jumping ahead, Lynn, but I will tell you this: when I look at a LinkedIn profile or a resume, I may be different, but this is what I've done. I've been doing this for 20 years. If I'm looking at your resume, we're going to assume you're competent, right? You've made the first screening. We didn't throw you out as soon as we glanced or skimmed the resume. So you're probably competent. So if everybody can do the job, what differentiates you? How you did it, how long you did it, maybe detailing special projects. I would tell you that skills based hiring is here to stay. It's not
Yes.
about the fact that, for example, I want to find out, do you have 20 years of experience, or do you have 1 year of experience 20 times? And so the way to demonstrate that is progressiveness in your titles, in your responsibilities, in the scope of the work you did. So if each individual role is a little more robust, more experience, more scope, all of a sudden I go, this person's growing and developing. And maybe they had some problems along the way, but they learned from it. I want
Yep.
people that have grown and developed, because lifelong learners, the little trick, the little hack, I go to the bottom of the resume or profile, and I look at their extracurricular activities, their volunteer activities. Are they volunteering at the local Volunteers of America, at their church, the Boy Scout, Girl Scout group? Do they give back to the community? Because I'm looking for well-rounded people. So
Yes.
all things being equal, everybody being competent, the people that are more well-rounded are the ones that are a little more attractive to me, at least when I look at their resume and profile.
So, I take certain things off for an applicant tracking system resume before it goes to the upload stage at the beginning. But on the pretty resume for humans, I always include professional development if there's room,
Yes.
professional organizations, as
Certification,
well as
awards.
certifications, yes, as well as volunteer work.
Yes,
Me as a nonprofit servant leader, I really admire people that volunteer because they have a heart. It means, that they care about others and not just about themselves. So, volunteering is an important thing for me, and that's why I put it on client resumes.
totally
So
agree with you.
let's talk about LinkedIn. Okay,
Okay.
I take it you review LinkedIn profiles, and what are you seeing out there? Like, what are the profiles looking like? Are they some good, some bad, some like need improvement, or what?
Yeah, I've seen them all over the board. Just remember today, LinkedIn is your digital reputation. And employers and recruiters like me absolutely look at it. So, it's kind of like when you speak. When I look at pull up a profile, if there's no photo, immediately that tells me lack of attention to detail. That not may not be the case, but that's the impression I get. If there's no banner or a weak banner, if you're applying for a mid to senior level leadership role, you need to have that gravitas and premium look about your profile. So get it professionally done. Um, there's a first impression, right? And I would say most professionals are underutilizing their LinkedIn. A common problem: incomplete, weak headlines, no measurable accomplishments, just like on the resume we talked about. Little engagement or thought leadership, like post on a somewhat regular basis.
Yes.
Comment on other people's post. Um, Also, credibility. And I told you about going down to the bottom of a LinkedIn profile. If you don't have recommendations and skills listed that are endorsed by others, you are missing the boat, because social proof has been proven by research to be the number one way people decide not only to buy a product or service or engage a consultant or a coach, but also to hire a person. So you need to have up to date recent recommendations and endorsements that match the job you're looking for, and have them endorsed by people who can vouch for your work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's one thing for the endorsements, it's a whole 'nother thing for somebody to take the time to write a recommendation,
Oh, yes.
that's like that's worth its weight in gold, so to
Well,
speak.
because Lynn,
So
if I say I'm great, I could be telling a tale. But if someone else who work with me says I'm great at what I do, that's 20x the quality of me
yes,
saying I'm great, right? Just my profile
absolutely.
is me telling you how great I am. And my grandmother used to say it's a sorry rooster that won't crow in his own fence. So, most of us have been taught our whole life to be humble and not arrogant and don't boast about our accomplishments. But when you're in career transition, it's like, okay, they put you on the fence and they say, crow. Okay, Lynn, tell us how great you are and why should we hire you? You need to be able to do that. And it's much, much better when
Absolutely.
someone else does it.
And you know what? If on LinkedIn, like, if you don't toot your own horn, ain't nobody gonna do it for
That's
you, right?
right. That's
So
right.
you have to ask people for those
Yes.
recommendations, and,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I was that humble one, like, for years. I've probably missed out on asking for lots of recommendations over the years, but, I tend more to ask now, than not. Not
Well, and the
always,
best way to
but
get a recommendation is to give one. We've
yes.
all heard it's better to give than to receive, because then
Oh,
the law
yes.
of reciprocity kicks in and people go, "Oh, that's right. We did work together. We did some great things. I might want to talk about how
Absolutely.
great you were on the project."
Yeah. So you'd mentioned about, the banner and the, headline and, filling out metrics and whatnot on a LinkedIn profile. What is personal branding? How does that play out in the hiring process? And how do you think candidates can enhance their online presence? I know you mentioned a few things, but just for giggles, recap.
Yeah, yeah, no. So your brand is what people say about you before they even enter the interview, right? Before you even get into the interview. So you remember I said, okay, there's your visual brand. When they see your photo, it's a nice professional headshot, nice banner with exactly what you do, how you do it, who you help, how you help them. That needs to be very, very clear within the first like 5 seconds. I would then go on to say personal branding can be media that you include under each job experience. So you have an experience, maybe put a copy of a white paper you did. Maybe put together a networking one sheet document. That's an at a glance. If somebody wants to download that to see maybe how you are as a person, the kind of projects you've worked on. Um, Optimize your headline and summary. Share industry expertise. So if you know a lot about, let's say, project management, what if you published you have a white paper that you've written, or maybe just a documentation, a brief on a project you accomplished. Document that and put that in a document and attach it to your profile so I can see an example of your work. The question I think somebody gave in the chat was, all things being equal, who's going to get the interview? Let's say I have two people, Lynn, equally qualified, profiles look the same, but one has examples of their work on their LinkedIn profile. That
Mhm.
brand, it's like me going to buy a product on Amazon. One has 1,000 reviews, a lot of them are 5-star, and the other one has 4 or 5 that are 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go with the one with all the reviews.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you can do that on your LinkedIn profile by highlighting achievements, but also including proof. That's that social proof that here's the project we worked on, and here's, let's say, the news article that was written about it, for example. So you
Yeah.
want to be authentic, you want to be real, also including videos. So, for example, a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is probably worth 10,000 words. What if you recorded yourself talking about a project you just finished or something you love to talk about, something you're passionate about?
Mhm.
It doesn't even have to be business. It could be maybe you did something, you've with a volunteer group you're involved in, and you're talking about it or highlighting it. The fact that
Mhm.
people see you talking and you're passionate about something, trust me, that can make a huge difference in how you're perceived.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess I get my word out through speaking and writing. So, under my LinkedIn headline, I have more gobsmacking resources,
I love
and
that word.
that's my link tree,
That's
and it's
great.
my link of links. So I have, all my upcoming speaking events. I have all my publications,
And
and
it's
you
exhaustive.
know,
I love it. No, that, by the way, that stood out. It's very, very memorable. Very few people go into that much detail. I loved it.
well, I've written over 350 articles over the past like 7.5 years. I have a LinkedIn newsletter, I have a Substack, and then I write for 5 online news publications, which have over 120,000 subscribers, and that's what I've been doing for the past seven years.
So, Lynn,
But
can I point out right there? You just gave me 3 or 4 data points, facts that are completely impressive. Had you not said that, I wouldn't have known that. So
there you
you not
go.
only said, you do a lot of writing, you post articles, you're involved in a lot of things. You gave me some
Hmm.
exact details that are now it's not just, yeah, you do a little talking, you do a little writing. No, you gave me specifics. The
Yeah.
specifics make you stand out.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've like 9,400 subscribers, I think, on LinkedIn newsletter, almost 5,300 on Substack. So, you know, I know it's crazy. I have the nonprofit website, which is greatcareers.org, but I don't have a personal website yet. My LinkedIn
It's
page
kind of
is
your
my
personal
is my
site.
landing is my
Yeah.
landing page.
And that's nothing
Um,
wrong with that. That's fantastic.
I do have a website sort of built. I just haven't filled it in with content. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it over Memorial Day weekend, but I'm going to try. So stay tuned. Lynn may have a website, or at least
Well,
part
Lynn,
of
let,
one.
let me recommend something. The fact that you're talking about you have other sites, I've heard of people getting accidentally suspended or temporarily barred
Yeah.
from LinkedIn. If Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So have other
Yeah.
places people can find out about you, because
I hear
what
you.
if you need to have a backup plan.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. I've had some very good friends with some very large quantities of connections go to LinkedIn jail. Fortunately, I've never been there, don't want to be there. Um, but I try to
It's a
follow the
possibility.
rules of the user agreement. I do work on people's LinkedIn profiles, but on a Google document, they have to copy and paste into
Yes.
their own LinkedIn profile. I don't break that
Smart.
rule in
Smart.
LinkedIn. Yeah, yeah. All right, let's talk about interview preparation.
Okay.
So, but first, I want to notify the people that are on this call. I'm going to continue doing some Q&A with Rick, and then at the end, if you'd like to come up and ask some specific questions, we will provide the link, and you'll be invited up. Just as an FYI. All right, so let's talk about interview preparation. How do job seekers best prepare for interviews as a candidate that you are going to submit? And do you assist them with any interview preparation?
Yeah, great question, Lynn. The best interviews, in my opinion, feel like conversations. They don't feel like an interview because the candidate's prepared thoroughly. So I'm a big believer in being prepared, but I also know that you can be super prepared and not deliver, right? So you have like it's like writing a fantastic speech, but you never practice it, and the first time you give it is in front of a huge
Oh,
crowd. You're probably not going to do that well, right? Because nobody gets it right the first time. So what I would tell you is here's a couple of tips I would give you. Number one, and yes, I do assist in giving context to candidates. I never tell a candidate what to say. And I'll tell you why. A very specific reason. If a company, a client of mine, or a company that's being I'm submitting a candidate to, if they hire that individual, they're not going to get me. They're going to get that individual. So I don't want the candidate saying what I would say because that's not them. I want it to be authentic and real, genuine.
love that.
However, I might tell them a little bit about the person they're going to be interviewing with or the culture of the company or what that company values. So if there are things in your background that you can highlight that match with that, you want to bring that out, right? So definitely prepare by studying the company mission. Go to the website, check out their leadership team, see where they went to school, what they like to do for fun. Find out about the culture. Call somebody who works at the company and ask them what is it like to work there. Go to Indeed boards and read what people are saying. Some of that's garbage, but still check it out. It's information.
Yeah.
Read the press releases on their website. See the
Yes.
recent highlight. Maybe they've just accomplished just won a big award for a big project. You might want to bring that up when you're talking because now you're just talking about them. Because remember, the only thing a person likes more than talking about themselves is hearing someone else talk about them. So when you're in an interview and you know a lot about them, you can ask them questions about them that get them talking about them, and all of a sudden they like you more because you're interested in them. Make sense? Um,
Yeah,
Here's a big
absolutely.
one. Whatever you think you're going to say, it's always going to take longer than you think. So prepare and think sound bites, not data dumps. Don't go
Yes.
in
Yes.
prepared. We don't want to hear your war and peace life story. Nobody does. We want to know what are the highlights. Give me the Reader's Digest version, as I call it. And then, be prepared to ask about what their expectations are in the role. Um, Obviously, prepare for some of the obvious interview questions you're going to get and have some power statements that match with your top 3 or 4 skills that you can deliver. And here's another little tip. Have you ever seen a politician or a government person or some celebrity, and somebody puts a mic in front of them and says, "Okay, Miss Lynne Williams, can you give me your opinion on the Israeli situation?" And that person completely dodges the question and says, "That's a really great question, but what I really like to focus on today are these 3 things." And you basically have something prepared that you want to say that's relevant, impressive, and you've prepared, and you never even answer the question. Sometimes you need to get that stuff out, and there's things that you want to cover. What if they don't ask you the question about what you're best at? You want to bring it up.
Mm.
So don't be afraid to say, "That's a great question. Maybe we can get to that later, but here's what I'd love to focus on. What I think is important is that what I can do and what you're looking for in this role are a great match." And that's why I'm really interested in learning more about it, because I think we might be a great fit. Okay, whatever you just said is super impressive. So it's not what you know, it's what you can think of in time, right?
You might have given me a little fodder on an article. It's like, "Be like a politician and learn how
Yeah.
to dodge questions in an interview."
Hey, and it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is this, right? When I was at AT&T,
No.
we used to have these 5 forbidden phrases you could never say on the phone to a customer. One of them was no. If they would ask you a question and the answer was no, you'd say, well, what I can do is this. You wouldn't say, no, I can't do that. You would say, well, what I can do. So when people say, what do you know about that? I go, I'm not sure, but what I do know is this. So you lead with your strength,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I tell people, if you're gonna go to an interview, I'm not an interview coach. I do writing, resume, LinkedIn, keywords, like I'm very tunnel vision. But I do presentations on interview skills and salary negotiation skills and all that, even though I don't do it. I've heard lots of people and I've got lots of tips to share, but I don't coach people on that. But for interviewing, I tell people prepare 7 to 10 star stories. So if you
Yes.
were asked a behavioral question, if you had a star story, it could be problem solving, communication, teamwork. Like that star story, you could twist it for
Right.
all 3 situations, right?
Yes.
You've got to practice. Like you said
Yes.
practice. It's
Yes.
like if you want to be in the NFL or the NBA, or you want to be the first violin chair. What does it take? You got to practice.
That's right.
Um, right? So if you want that interview to land you a job, you've got to practice.
100%.
So, what are some common interview questions um, that candidates should be ready to answer?
So I'm going to flip this on you a little bit, Lynn. I'm going to say don't focus on questions because that's like, oh my God, what if they ask me this question? It's kind of fear based. What I would say is think answers, not questions. So
Okay.
specific examples of what you've done that's been exemplary that you can detail or point to. You want to structure your answers concisely, practice talking about those 7 to 10 things you mentioned so that you can say it so easily it just falls off your tongue, right? Easily. Uh,
Mhm.
think about outcomes, results, and lessons learned. So, people are always going to ask, tell me a little bit about yourself. You can either win the war or lose the whole battle right there, right out of the gate. You can stumble like that horse that stumbled before they got in the Kentucky Derby recently. Could it
Mhm.
fell and kicked the jockey off before it got in the gate? It was over.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
tell me about yourself question. So again, nobody wants your life story, your war and peace, Tolstoy thing. They want you to say, hey, this is who I am. This is where I'm from. I love this. This is what I'm passionate about. I've been doing this for a long time. I saw you're looking for that. I feel like it's a really good fit. And I'm really excited about your future. And maybe if there's a fit between us, that's why I'm here to learn more. Boom. I just gave it to you in like a minute and a half. That's what you want. Rehearsed, prepared. They're going to ask you, why are you interested in the role? You got to have an answer for that. What are your
Mhm.
greatest strengths, right? Sometimes weaknesses, but I ask it a little different. I say, hey, Lynn, if I gave you $10,000, I'm not going to do that. But if I did, the only stipulation is you had to invest it in your own personal or professional development. How would you
Mm.
invest that money? So what you're going to tell me is where you're weak. That's an indirect way to ask you how
I
you're weak.
love that. I
Uh,
love that.
Challenges. What are some problems you faced and you were able to overcome? That's a behavioral question you're going to get. Tell me about a difficult team situation. I'm looking for communication and interpersonal skill. Or also, they're going to say, why should we hire you? You got to have an answer for that. So what they're saying is, what value do you, Lynn, bring to our organization? Like, if we hire
Mhm.
you, what difference is that going to make? How's my life going to be different a year from now if I hire you versus Tom, Dick, or Harry? Okay. You need to have an answer for that. And usually what I would tell you is that answer is going to be who you are, how you do it, and the kind of person you are. Like, do you
Mhm.
lift everybody up around you? Are you a positive person? Do you like creativity and coming up with new ideas? Are you coachable? Are you a lifelong learner? These are all things that you want to weave into the answers to those common questions.
So I'm a former K-12 teacher, and I used to teach little people how to do thesis statement writing. You might have remembered that from high school or
I was a
college.
teacher too.
Yeah. So, I have some candidates who are neurodivergent, and I'm the mother of a AUDHD adult child. And I'm like, okay, well, don't get nervous. Just take a look at the job description and what are 3 words that you can pull out of the job description. So if somebody
I
says,
like
tell me about yourself, I am A, B, and C. And that echoes 3 things right from the job description. And
perfect.
then you go on to detail a sentence about A, a sentence
Right.
about
You
B, a
demonstrate
sentence
or
about
talk about it.
C, and
Yes.
then you recap it, right? So, it's easier to stay very focused and that short and sweet Cliff Notes
You've
version
got a method, a
versus
method.
versus Tolstoy, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. So, hi, Joey Himmelfarb. I love Joey. He's in New Jersey. He wrote a really great book, and he's on the Thought Leadership Branding team,
Nice.
club team with me. And he's asking, what's the best question to ask when they ask if you have any questions?
Okay, I'll give you the best one. I've got a lot of them. And by the way, great question, Joey. You definitely, the worst thing that can happen is at the end of an interview, the hiring manager or recruiter says, "So, do you have any questions for me?" And you get the deer in the headlights. Nah, I pretty much you covered it all. That means you haven't thought, you weren't prepared. Okay. Um, the best question I've ever heard, and I don't exactly remember where I got this, but I'm going to share it with your audience and you, Lynn, is so, Lynn, you asked me the question. You have any questions? Yeah, Lynn, let's assume, let's pretend we're a year from now and you had a successful search and you hired me and it's a year from now. Tell me what would have to have happened for you to consider this a successful hire? And the reason I like that
Mm,
question is because they then have to respond by telling you exactly what they expect from the best hire. And
love that.
when they tell you the answer to that, they're basically loading your, gun to go, well, that's amazing because of those 2, 3 things you said were important. These are the reasons I think I'm highly qualified because I've done this, that, and the other that match right up with what you're looking to get done. And so you just basically you put the lock nut, you put the seal, you put the the final finishing touches on the interview by asking them what they need for it to be successful a year from now, looking back, and then you reinforce what you said you could do that matches that.
Mm, I love that. By the way, Joey runs a job search group every Tuesday. So touch base with him if you'd like to learn more because he always has great speakers and he runs a good group and it's all on Zoom. So let's talk about skills and qualifications. What are the most sought after skills and qualifications in candidates right now?
Yeah, we talked earlier about the trends changing with AI. What I
Mhm.
will tell you in a marketplace that's in flux, in rapid change, and we're in that. I mean, let's face it. The ability to learn and adapt and lead through chain has become probably one of the most competitive, major competitive advantages candidates can have today. So
Yeah.
to show that you're adaptable. Maybe you pivoted in your career. You went from this industry to that industry and you were able to be successful in both. Maybe you worked where you didn't have a lot of resources and you were able to get the job done anyway. Shows resourcefulness. Strategic thinking. You came in, things were going in the wrong path. You pivoted, you address your strategy, long term and short term, and you were able to turn the thing around. The ability to communicate,
Mhm.
leadership, everybody has their own definition of leadership. Mine is the same as the military. The military, they define leadership as influence. So if you've been able to
Mm,
demonstrate and talk about how you came in, things were this way, I came in and I influenced us to go in a little bit different direction. And these were the demonstrable results that occurred, right?
mhm.
Um, AI literacy, those are skills everybody's looking for. It doesn't matter what job. Comfort with technology and change, the ability to solve problems. That's always big. So that's one of those things where if you've solved some pretty big problems and you can talk about that, talk about it. Collaboration. You're not a me, myself, and I guy or lady. if you've been able to take a team and work together and build some synergy, awesome. Also, the ability to make data informed decisions. So you do deep research, you then take that research and you're able to execute on it and deliver some impact, some ROI, some return on investment, some improvement, some operational excellence. Again, these are all skills and qualifications that may not show up on your resume, but you need to be able to talk about them.
Well, you just kind of like answered fully my next question was soft skills. What soft skills are really important, and you just kind of nailed it right there.
Well,
The
think
big
about it.
one you said was adaptability, and
Yeah.
it's so funny that last week I wrote a an article about skills, and I never gone quite in depth about the different kinds of skills. I always used to break it into hard skills and soft skills, but there's so many more skills. And, from the research that I did, adaptability was like the biggest one that
Right.
everybody needs to have.
Well,
Mhm.
well, Lynn, my favorite quote from Mike Tyson, the boxer, he said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? So we all have a strategy, we all have a plan, and then life happens and problems occur. So the people that are able to weave and adapt and are agile and show agility. So, you know what? I plan to go this way. Things happen. We adapted. And look, we were able to adapt because technical skills will get somebody an interview, but I really
Mhm.
believe soft skills that we're talking about will very often determine who actually gets hired and promoted.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the best communicators, the people with the best story, Tom Peters says this, the person with the best story wins. The
Mhm.
person who shows accountability, takes ownership of their good things and their problems, their failures, collaborate. People who are
Yeah.
coachable, the people with the best listening skills. If I get
Mhm.
into an interview situation and the person is not listening to my question and answering it, that's a red flag. That doesn't mean you're out of contention, but it certainly doesn't promote your cause, right? And then the final one I would tell you is ability to build relationships and resolve conflict. If you're able to de-escalate conflict, that's kind of a soft skill, but it's really not, because if you anytime there's people involved in a business, which they're always involved, the people that have the ability to build strong, deep relationships and then resolve conflicts when they occur, because they will, those are the most powerful leaders and most impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joey did a recap of, what does success look like, and he's added some things in there. So I appreciate him. Oh, somebody else added something in. It wasn't Joey. They mentioned Joey. Um, okay, so Glenn Lavison is asking, here's a question to ask in an interview. With my background and experience, what would be the biggest challenge for me in this role? I like it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like that. The other thing would be, and I don't know if we talked about follow up yet or if we're going to, but what I would tell you is, why is this position open? Is this position open? Is it a brand new position, or was there somebody in the role before? And, where did that person perhaps miss the mark that you'd like to, catch up on that gap? And that way they'll
Yeah,
tell you, because, many times what you want to make sure you're not stepping into a landmine, that they just have
yeah,
super high unrealistic expectations, and that's good information for a candidate to know in an interview situation.
yeah, absolutely. So, I'm going to do a quick commercial break for all those who are on right now. This event is co-promoted by Great Careers Network, which is greatcareers.org. We currently run 18 to 25 events a month. We do tone down a little bit during the summer months, um, and also December, so that people can enjoy the holidays. But we do things, on Zoom. We have some hybrid meetings, and here we are on Restream live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So go to greatcareers.org and check out the events page. You'll see that there are a couple buttons that you should probably click. One is an events quick list, and that has all of the events listed in short order, by date and time and what the topic is. Doesn't list the speaker. You have to go to the events page to see who the speaker is. But I'm also running a career readiness camp for teens this summer, and I have 9 different sessions. There's some that are in person in Paoli, Pennsylvania, some that are online, and it's for high school as well as college students. Um, and it's a commitment of 12 hours. That's it. So any one of the sessions is about 12 hours. So that, they have jobs or family vacations or whatever. But I'm excited to teach what I teach adults to some younger folks because, they know nothing about how to apply for jobs and how important networking is and how to prepare their career documents in order to land the job. In other words, they don't know how to market themselves. So, and get through applicant tracking systems and all that. So, we're going to cover all that. In addition, this is also co promoted by the Thought Leadership Branding Club, which is the website. And if you check out the events page, which I'm on right now, you'll see that at 4 o'clock today, we have a masterclass speaker, Sephora Janelle Ray, and her topic is how attachment styles may be impacting your business relationships. So there are activities and workshops and coaching sessions every week. I've been part of this club for 5.5 years, so I get great value out of it. It is led by Bobby Umar, who's just a great guy.
Fantastic.
So check out those 2 sites, greatcareers.org and thoughtleadershipbranding.club. So before we invite people up to the stage, why don't you tell us what kind of jobs that you are currently trying to fill, where they are located, or are they remote, or are they hybrid? So tell us a little bit about what you got going.
Sure. So I've got a senior project management role in electrical construction out in California, Southern California. About to start a new plant manager role in Italy. If anybody speaks Italian and knows about running a plant, that's about to start. Always looking for technology, CISAs, CIOs. My degree in college was actually in finance. I got a BS in finance. And so I do a lot of accounting and finance roles, both leadership as well as CFO, VP of finance type roles. And, what I'm seeing out in the market, Lynn, is a continued demand for strong leaders who both can drive growth, improve culture, and lead through complexity. So, I do stuff in healthcare. I came out of the IT and telecom space as a sales leader, but I have a proclivity to do technology. That being said, my biggest client ever was in the manufacturing space. So when I say my niche is really leadership, that's really what it is.
Okay, great. Um, so what tips do you have for job seekers to reach out to you? Should they connect on LinkedIn or submit,
Yeah, that's probably the
resumes
best
via their
way.
website or what?
So I'll give you a couple of real easy ones. Since nobody can spell or say my last name, remember we talked about that? You can go to ricklinkedin.com, Rick, R-I-C-K, LinkedIn.com. If you type that in, it'll take you right to my LinkedIn. I'll provide that to you later in the chat. You can also go to 4clo.com, the number 4 followed by the letters KLO, 4clo.com. You go to that, that's going to take you there. I've also got an AMP bio link that I'll send where you can connect with me on Instagram. But LinkedIn, I pretty much live there. That's where most of my clients and candidates are. But feel free to email me, rick@clodygroup.com.
All right. So I don't know if Merrill Cass is on this call or not. Let me go see if he's sent me a message on LinkedIn because now would be a great time. Yes, I think he is. So if you could put the link for the restream up in case people want to join us up on stage, now would be a great time. Will I ask Rick about if you have submitted a candidate for a position, what tips would you offer that candidate for following up after an interview? Should they contact you and like how often or how much time after the interview, or do you typically reach out to them?
I will definitely reach out to them, but what I would tell you is, yeah, it's very appropriate for once I've passed a candidate on to a client for them to both follow up with me and the client. And what I would tell you is strong communication, and professionalism after an interview can really reinforce all the positive impressions you've made during the interview. So people always ask me, what's too much, what's too little? It's like the three bears, right? You don't want it too hot, too cold. You want it just right. I say, don't be a pest, be professionally persistent, pleasantly persistent. Which means one of the questions I would ask when they say, do you have any questions for me at the end of an interview? I usually suggest saying, hey, listen, just so we're on the same, level here. Um, when would you expect to have this decision made, and when would it be appropriate for me to follow back up with you to find out how things are going? Because I'd love to follow up and keep in touch with you, for this role or anything down the road in the future. And so you leave that door open. You ask them, and when they say, follow up with me maybe at the end of next week, and then I follow it up with, would you prefer that in email, text, or phone call? What's your preferred method of communication? Because some people never check email and they respond quickly to text. Some people prefer a phone call. But I would tell you, follow up promptly after the interview. Definitely send a handwritten thank you. Communicate interest. Let them know you're interested if you are, right? You don't want to over communicate. You don't want to go silent. I will tell you this, Lynn, and this is true. I have heard clients tell me that we had 3 finalists, maybe 4 finalists. Everybody got interviewed. All things being equal, that Lynne Williams, she really seemed to be more interested in the job than the rest. That really means something to us. So sometimes just the fact that you're more interested can sway the decision in your favor just because you're more interested. And I'm telling you, I've heard hiring managers and heads of HR and company owners say that person seems like they want the job more. So if you really want it, don't be afraid to say it.
All right, that's great advice. Okay, so I tried to put the link in the comments underneath the event on LinkedIn. I've asked Merrill if he could put it in. I asked Joey if he could put it in. So I don't see anything coming up in the chat yet. So I'm gonna keep going here until we see if anybody's gonna join us today. So yeah, if any audience members want to come up and join us on stage and have questions for Rick, by all means, come on up. So what else have I not asked you that you would like to share?
I'll add on to that last question you had, Lynn, where you talked about what's appropriate, how to follow up. I'll tell you, there's something you shouldn't do. Like if a recruiter's involved and we are representing you, like we've presented you to a client, it's okay to go directly to the hiring manager or the person we've introduced you to, but you want to keep that recruiter in the loop. You don't want them to feel like you're going around them or doing an end run, right? And if you find out that there's a job being posted out there where they've, let's say, retained a full-time recruiter to work on it, some people have mistakenly thought, I'll just go directly to them because they'll save money. So the recruiter doesn't have to get paid. Well, the recruiter is going to find out about that because, for example, most of us, and I do this, I say, listen, you've paid us so that you don't have to talk to 150 candidates. So if anybody comes to you directly, just send them our way. But guess what? When they come our way, we know they went to the client first. So then we usually have a talk and say, hey, listen, we're kind of running interference and vetting folks. So you want to be careful you don't step on the toe of somebody who can help you, because think about it. My job is to advocate for you. If you kind of offend me or want to go around me, am I going to really be motivated to advocate for you? Maybe not as much. So it's not that that's always a problem. Sometimes it's just you didn't know. And I'm okay with that. But if you knew and did it anyway, that's a completely different thing. So just think of the recruiter as your friend, not as an enemy or an impediment or a obstacle you have to overcome to get to the real decision maker. I'm the first decision maker really in the process.
You're the one that's making the introduction, right?
Absolutely.
And providing that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And we all have to work for and make a living, right? So you don't want to burn your bridges with recruiters. They're
No.
the ones that they're gonna take care of you. My daughter started with a national recruiting firm in 2012, and she's still with that firm. She's no longer a recruiter. She went to be an account manager, and then a lead recruiter, and then another account manager, and then a corporate leadership trainer, and whatnot. So I know how important it was, for her to make those introductions to
Yeah.
people, because her life, her livelihood depended on it.
Yeah.
All right. So we have some folks that want to join us here. All right.
Okay.
Um, so let me see if I can pull up Johnny Shaw. He lives about 20 minutes from my office, and he actually helps the Great Careers Network a little bit with
Wonderful.
whoops, I missed it.
I saw it
With
for a minute.
UX. Yep. All
There
right.
he is. There
And
he is.
then Dave.
Hey, oh, okay.
Hey,
I knew
hey,
I was around here somewhere.
we're gonna pull up Dave Ralston. Dave Ralston used to be a chapter leader for us in Philadelphia. Nice to
That's
see
right.
you, Dave.
Good to see
All
you.
right.
Good to see y'all.
Okay, so let's go to Johnny first. I know you made a comment in the thread, but it got buried on me already. So I'm gonna leave you to repeat that.
Comments do that. That's just a part of the bad user experience design that I am on a war against. I am at war with bad user experience design. Don't forget that. I wanted to ask Rick about the follow-up. Are you suggesting a handwritten thank you note to the recruiter, and only to the hiring person, but how about to the recruiter? And handwritten, will that even get there in time to make a difference?
Good question, because the pace of hiring, we said earlier, the trend is the hiring process has been sort of extrapolated. It's longer these days. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Anything that makes you the obvious choice or the different, better choice is good. And Gary V, everybody knows Gary V. He says meetups are the new internet. And what he means by that is everybody's sitting behind a keyboard doing stuff virtually on Zoom, and we're DMing and instant messaging, and we're doing Slack. When you get a handwritten note that expresses a sincere appreciation for their time and sincere interest in the job, trust me when I tell you, very few people, everybody says they know to do it. Very few actually do it. So when you get one of those, it stands out. Do you want to stand out in the crowd? Then I say do it. That's why I do it. I still send them. There are presidents who used to be known for sending handwritten notes to people, and those people have them framed on their wall for life. Why?
Right.
Handwritten. If they'd gotten an email, would the email be framed? Probably not. But I'm telling you, it's like the reason a video is better than a text or a picture is because it's more personal. A handwritten note is extremely personal, and don't underestimate the ability to be likable. The more likable you are, the more likely you're to be hired. And people who take the time and attention to write a handwritten note stand out and are more likable because you form a little bit more of an emotional bond with them. Trust me.
So I have a question. What happens if you're in a panel? What do you recommend as far as handwritten notes? Should they all be different? I say they should be slightly, but we want to thank each and every person. And should you also send an email? I say you should, along with the handwritten note. But if you go to the Starbucks when you leave an interview, you could write a handwritten note. You could go back to the company and drop it off at the reception and say, could you please deliver this too? So
thank you.
Comment on my comments.
Lynn, let me tell you something. And here's a pro hack, guys. While you're in the interview in the panel, make sure you find out before you go to the interview who's on the panel. Do your homework. Find out what they like. When they're in the interview, if they say something that piques your interest, leave immediately and write down what you remembered them saying. Okay. This guy owes the mentalist does that whenever he meets people, he writes notes on what they talked about. When you write the thank you note, you mention something they said in the panel interview or something about their background to make it personal. Trust me, the handwritten note that they get immediately if you drop it off is going to make you stand out. Mentioning something about them that you noticed takes it to a whole different level. You're a noticer now. Your attention to detail is exemplary. And that's the kind of person they want to hire, more than likely.
Yeah.
I'm thinking as a user experience. So it looks like my computer switched to another camera. Just decided to do that. Hold on. Let me move this screen over here so I'm looking into what's going on. I'm thinking as a user experience person, it would be good for me to take them on an actual journey that would include a handwritten note, something very personalized, like you mentioned. And I've also discovered this recently, dating everything and putting context on everything, because 3 weeks later, it's like, what meeting was I at when I met this person? Right. And also, in addition to that, like you said, personalize it. But then, the handwritten thing, the artwork, I mean, I'm user experience. This is my bailiwick. And if I'm not doing that much, then somebody else is taking them on a user experience journey. Well, they win.
Johnny, when the reason Starbucks asks you for your name to put it on your coffee is not because they don't know whose coffee it is because they did research that said when you hear your name said by a company, an employee of a company, you create an emotional bond with that brand. You want to go to that Starbucks. Why? Because it's your cheers. Everybody knows your name there, right? Even though it's not registering with your conscious brain, your subconscious brain goes, hey, that barista knows me. She knows my drink. She has it ready for me when I come, if I go every day, right? I know people that walk into Starbucks and their coffee, their whatever cream vanilla, I can't say it, latte with 10 syllables is ready. My goal is if I can't say the name of the drink, I'm not ordering. I'm not drinking it. Okay. Too many syllables.
It probably they charge by the syllable.
That's right. Yeah. It probably costs more the longer it takes to say it.
Dave,
all right.
You never know how they're going to receive you. I had gone to Starbucks the other day, and I walked in. They said, David. I'm there like, oh, yeah, that's me. And because I ordered ahead of time, and then I had a little handwritten note on the tag. It said, "You are awesome." I'm like, oh, I really need to hear that today. So
see,
it's only sometimes it's a little.
And it's like a compliment, even if it's insincere, it still feels good, right?
Yeah, it does. Well, for the moment, yeah, it could definitely. So you're getting something out of it where it's like you never thought you would. So,
absolutely.
Right.
So, David, what question do you have for Rick?
Oh, well, I was wondering how you got into being a recruiter. What was your
great question?
Into that.
By the way, that is a great question to ask the hiring manager or HR person. Hey, when you were a little kid, did you dream of being an HR leader or a manager of this department when you grew up, or did it just happen? Because then they get to talk about their favorite subject, them, right? So thank you for the question, David. What I would tell you is I moved to Tennessee from New Orleans in 97. I was a leader of a team, and I went from Middle and East Tennessee to 3 states to the whole Mid-South. And I had like 5, 6, 7 states, managing, leading teams, hiring, firing. So recruiting was a part of my job, but not my entire job. Okay. And in late 06, I decided to start my own business as a consultant. So it was like a fractional director of sales, VP of sales for hire. So instead of one company, I had several companies hire me part-time. Loved it. Had lunch with a guy and a mentor of mine. And I knew him personally. And we have lunch and he tells me about his business. And he's a retained recruiter, just like me. He had been a head of HR for big Fortune 100 companies, Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, Champion, Aladdin. And he was so tired of recruiters taking too long, costing too much, and placing people that weren't sticking. And he was paying through the nose for it. He said, there's got to be a better way. So he creates this model and he tells me about it over lunch. And after he tells me about it, he goes, so Rick, what do you think? And I go, I think it's great. You seem like you're doing great. You love what you're doing. That's fantastic. He goes, no, what do you think? I said, wait a minute. What are you doing? You recruiting me or something? He goes, well, maybe. Well,
he was offering you a position, right?
He planted the seed. And so I thought, you know what? hey, I could do that. I'm as good as him, right? He was just a head of HR. I know how to talk to people and prospect and qualify. And he knew that I had those skills. And so a month later, I'm working with him. And I thought initially, David, I would keep doing consulting and do a little recruiting on the side. That's like being a general practitioner. I'm gonna do a little brain surgery on the side. No, no, no. You have to become a specialist. So very quickly I said, I got to give this my all. I'm all in. I have no plan B. I'm burning the ships, Cortez model. I'm just all in. This is either going to work or I'm going to go out broke trying. And a year and a half later of, making a lot less money than I had been making, it kicked in. I got my largest client. First client, I landed 13 searches in one meeting. Went on
Wow.
to
I
fill
can only
30.
imagine how much that amounts to.
And trust me, God knows it could not have come at a better time. I was, eating the crackers and Vienna sausage at that moment. So,
Oh, believe me, I can feel you.
an entrepreneur at heart. And
Right.
that's when I know, okay, this is my sign. I'm supposed to stick with this. And that was 2009. So
Oh, wow.
here I am, 17 years later.
Oh,
whatever.
what a tough year. Wow.
Oh yeah. It was after the '08, mortgage lending thing, and every
Wow.
recruiter on the planet was starving. And I land this elephant of a client, which
Wow.
pulled me out of the doldrums. Really did.
Wow, geez,
How
that's
did
awesome.
how did that come to you?
You know what? Great question, Johnny. And this is a great lesson for everybody in career transition. Never quit talking to people, networking, asking people for introductions. Here's a mistake I made. I started trying to call on all the successful, profitable companies in town to get recruiting done, and none of them had a problem that I could solve. So none of them needed me. They had internal recruiters. People were beating down the door to go to work for them. So finally I said, I'm going to change this. I'm talking to the wrong people. I'm going to find people with pain, with financial distress, maybe just got bought out, maybe a merger or an acquisition, some problem, right? Depressed financials. So I make a list of all those kind of companies and start calling on them. There was this one company, I called on them for 6 months. They just laid off 20% of their staff in '08. And I'm calling on this guy for 6 months, nothing, crickets. And finally, after 6 months of gifts, letters, cards, notes, phone calls, emails, Pony Express, smoke signals, nothing coming back. I mean, nothing. My phone rings and I pick up my phone and I go, hello, this is Rick. He goes, hey, Rick, this is Alan. I go, Alan. He goes, yeah, Alan. And I'm not going to say his last name. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I go, I'm waiting for your call. He goes, yeah, I've got all your cards and letters and gifts and everything. Thank you. He said, I'm sorry for not getting back to you. He goes, I really need your help. I go, I know. That's why I've been trying to get in touch with you. He invites me over. That's the guy that hired me for 13 searches right out of the chute. I called on him for 6 months, nothing. When he finally called me, it was like, get over. He said, when can you get over here? I said, how about 1 o'clock today? He goes, okay. I go into the meeting with the CHRO and the CEO's in the meeting. And he tells me to help this guy. He needs help. How soon can he get started? I go, right now. We can start right now. And we did. So guys, never give up, man. And sometimes you're not knocking on the right doors, but you got to keep knocking because you never know when that next knock, that next phone call, that next handwritten letter is going to turn into the person who's been saying, Johnny, where you been all my life? I've been looking for you, man. Where you been? Thank you for reaching out to me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the people who are, thank you for bothering me. Thank you for being persistent, professional. What was the other P you mentioned?
Yeah, pleasantly, professionally persistent, being pleasantly persistent. And here's the thing, Johnny, the first sale's made between your own two ears. So you got to sell yourself in your heart that I bring value. When you're convinced that you bring value, you can. Getting hired is kind of like sales. There was a famous sales trainer who said, sales is nothing but a transfer of emotion. So if you believe in you, you can get other people to believe in you, but you got to believe in you first. So guess what? If you're in transition, you're frustrated and you're not getting calls back and nobody's interviewing you, call somebody who loves you. Could be your mama, your brother, your sister, your person at church, your neighbor, somebody you used to work with who thinks you're great, and have them love all over you for a little bit and say, hey, if you were me looking for a job, did you remember when we worked together? What did you like about it? And let them tell you good things because it builds you up. Then you can go say, man, I'm worth something. Because I can tell you when I was in transition multiple times, my worst enemy was me. I was afraid to bother people, Johnny. I was afraid to call them. I was afraid to put myself out there and tell people I was unemployed. And finally, I got to the point where I said, you know what? I don't care anymore. I'm telling everybody. And that's when my life changed. I didn't care what people thought.
Yes.
I needed
Yes.
help. And all I had to do was ask.
Tell everyone,
I
right?
asked, they
Got to
answered.
do the
You got to
do
ask, and you can't receive if you don't ask.
And the thing is, it's honest too.
It's not. And you know what? Here's the other lie. I thought I was the only person that had ever gotten laid off in my life, or, downsized, or right-sized, or rift, whatever they call it these days. And you know what? When I started talking honestly about, man, I'm struggling. I love work. I need to provide for my family, and I'm looking for my next new adventure. And you know anybody? People go, yeah, man, I got laid off 3 years ago. Really? You? I didn't. From what I found out was, it's like Bum Phillips, the head coach of the Oilers, used to say, there's only two kind of coaches out there. Them's that been fired and them's that's going to be fired. So there's only two kind of professionals out there. People who've been in transition and those that are going to be, or been laid off, going to be laid off, been fired, going to be. Listen, guys, it happens. It's life. The secret is, how do you get up and respond? Life is 90% what happens to you and 10% how you respond. Or the other way, 10% what happens, 90% how you respond.
There's a question in the chat that relates to this from Hairball. It says, what do you do if we get laid off and are asked a question about why we're laid off or why you left your previous job? How would you answer that? That'll be our last question. And then you did some thank yous, and I want to do some thank yous afterwards, and we're going to wrap. All right.
Yeah.
So
great.
What do you do about
great question, Harold. And that, I get that question a lot, by the way. Here's what I would tell you. If they don't bring it up, you don't have to bring it up and air your laundry, right? But if it comes up, you want to be honest, be prepared for that question, whether it comes up or not. Have like when people have a gap in their career, that doesn't bother me if they can explain it. If I ask them about the gap and they can't explain it, now I'm a little concerned, right? So just, if you have a really intelligent response, you know what? It was a company-wide layoff and downsize. I got affected along with hundreds and thousands of others across the country in my region. And so, yes, it wasn't expected, but it happened, and I'm responding as best as I can. And that's why I'm really excited about your role, because I'm looking for a place where I can apply my skills and abilities to make a company grow and be profitable like you guys are looking for. So you say it, and then you move on. You don't just kind of drop it in the punch bowl. You say it, but you said, because of that, that's why I'm excited to talk to you guys. Like, you finish on a high note.
Yes. Yep. Got to turn the negative into a positive. So I want to do some thank yous. Thank you, Johnny, for coming up on stage. Thank you, David, for coming up on stage. Thank you for Merrill Cass, who is always here on our calls and helping us with the links to get the people up on stage. You are greatly appreciated. But biggest thank you to Rick Clody. So just now you know how to pronounce his name, for coming up and sharing your expertise. Next month, I have Mary Iswalt, who is local to me. She's going to be our recruiter on Call with Jobs. And so I'm going to track down a bio from her. She's talent acquisition for a company right now. So she's not an independent recruiter. She's working for a company. So we'll hear from somebody else next month. And if anybody knows any recruiters who would like to be, on my live stream, I will need somebody from July and beyond. So I welcome to have new people. So Rick, thank you again. Why don't you recap your websites and how you want people to reach out, and then we'll call it a day here. Okay.
We can't hear.
Hang on. Okay, I'm muted. Thanks for inviting me. This was such a pleasure. Guys, let me tell you, I have been in transition a few times, and I remember what it felt like. And one of the reasons I love doing what I do is because this is sort of me paying it forward. Because when I was in career transition, there were people that helped me who didn't ask for a dime, who helped me out of the goodness of their heart. And I remember saying, if I ever get in a position to do that for other people, I'm going to do it. And Lynn, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to meeting all of you guys. I put some stuff in the chat on how you can get in touch with me. And I look forward to seeing you guys again. Please invite me back. I'd love to join you again.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. And I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll see you, well, next month at Recruiter on Call with Jobs. But I have I have lots of events, constantly, so you'll always see that on my LinkedIn profile. So take care, everyone.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.